So what we do is we have visiting speakers, well-qualified teachers, lamas, monks, nuns, and we have a regular program of morning meditations as well as afternoon sessions on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday mornings where we can. Occasionally we have also pujas, sadhanas of Medicine Buddha, Tara, on often on Tuesdays, very occasionally on the appropriate full moon or other day, very occasionally. So what we're doing now is in response to, I think, a question or query that somebody had the other day, and which is a very common and important topic. When I say common, it just means it comes up regularly. It's excruciatingly important, I would say, the topic we're going to look at. How to work with challenging circumstances, difficult circumstances, not just cope with them in the sense of, okay, I'm coping with it, but actually to allow those circumstances to open us up, open up our mind, our heart, and embrace the, for want of a better word, the Mahayana ideal of sort of all-embracing kindness, compassion, based on also wisdom, not never separated from wisdom, understanding how things are connected, how we are connected. So anyway, that's what we're going to look at the next few days until next Sunday, perhaps, or Monday, I think it is, Monday week for the next 7-8 days. And Tushita, just to continue a little bit about Tushita, Tushita's always depended on people's kindness, their donations. We don't get anything from the government. So we're a center that has always depended on the kindness of the students. And that's how we've been surviving. Also on the kindness of our landlady and landlord, late landlord, who have given us a very good, wonderful space in a great part of Delhi. Yeah, at a very, very bargain sort of rate. But still, of course, we need to raise funds. And any of you who are interested, you can get in touch with us. We do need more equipment and so forth for our library, for example, which we want to make more usable, user-friendly. We need more shelves and so forth. Anyway, this is very unusual. I don't usually start a session with this or with any kind of request for money, so don't take it the wrong way. I'm just giving some information. We are a center which offers everything pretty much, on everything on donation basis, which is how ideally it should be, you could say. But in the modern world, we do need to we need to pay for things. We need to pay for events, for people, for wages. So that's why we need to request people's generosity, without which we don't survive. So, and that's the case anyway, isn't it? We depend on people all our life, one way or another. It's not just money, obviously, on people's affection, their care, their kindness, their consideration, their physical support. And if we, of course, take the example of the mother and father and so forth, then it starts, even before we are born. So we're forever existing based on the kindness of other people and animals, obviously, and insects and this earth that. This beautiful earth, which is in danger of not functioning properly anymore due to our carelessness and greed. Anyway, let's start with posture and motivation. I think all of you know a little bit about the posture. It doesn't have to be 100% a perfect posture because we're not going to engage in any heavy-duty meditation right now. But it's good if the back is upright and the shoulders are level, because that indicates a basic sanity, doesn't it? A basic goodness, a basic freedom from fear. a sort of, what shall we say, a basic human dignity, which is there. It's always there within us, and which we sometimes forget in our insecurity and fear and so on and so forth. But we're all basically very dignified beings with basic goodness, um, basic sanity. So our upright back shows that, and the front of our body is open in this posture, which indicates that we're willing to work with the world and we're not just going to engage in something for ourselves, although that is very important also in the beginning. But we're also knowing that whatever we do actually does have an effect on others. This is proven now. It's not just some kind of spiritualists or New Age people who believe in this. It's something understood by the great spiritual traditions since the beginning, that when we work on ourselves, when we are open ourselves, we have a beneficial effect on the environment. So this posture itself signifies this openness or this all-embracing quality, which will be of benefit to the environment, to people, to animals, to the basic energy in the environment, which right now is polluted by a lot of fear, doubt, self-centeredness, as well as the physical pollution and so forth. But so whenever we engage in a positive attitude with this warm heart, good heart, as His Holiness Dalai Lama calls it, then we're having a positive effect on the people around us, but even beyond that, perhaps more than we can imagine sometimes, you know, with our limited knowledge, we cannot see the power of the mind, which is spoken about so much in by our teachers, and from the experience of people who really practice, they can, they can speak a lot about the power of the mind and our intentions. So let's create this upright, open posture. Eyes can be open or closed, it doesn't really matter, so long as there's a sense of being present and somewhat focused, as well as relaxed. The body can be still, that's helpful for a while, since it's so used to agitation and a lot of movement. So if it's still and relaxed, which may be difficult, which is why sometimes it's very good to have some fast walking or exercise before one sits to meditate, because there is just so much restlessness and stagnant energy in our bodies. So sometimes it's very good to have some movement before practice. Anyway, if one is restless and the body is twitching or moving, then at least we can just be aware of that. It needn't be happening sort of unconsciously. We can be aware in a very relaxed but attentive way of whatever's happening for us in this moment right now. Even though, as one of our organization's very excellent teachers yesterday mentioned, there is really, upon analysis, no present moment that can be found, really intrinsically. Still, we can still speak of a present moment relative to, dwelling in the past or worrying about the future. There is this sense of what is happening right now for oneself, even though now is something very flickering and perhaps one might even say uncertain and unstable. There is something we can label the present moment. So get a sense of being on a cushion or chair, wherever you are, at home or wherever, and people here at Tushita. And there's a sense of a body and this awareness, consciousness, with contact with the cushion or chair, a sense of presence as a human being, still alive, still breathing, when no doubt many, many people died last night or in the past 24 hours. So many people died. Many whom did not expect to be dying yesterday, but they did. But we're still alive. Something quite amazing in one way if you look at the complexity of the human body, or if you bother to open a book on, a medical book on pathology or diseases, the variety of ways in which this body can go wrong and completely destroy us, but it hasn't happened for any of us yet who are here on the session. So that's pretty amazing. And there are, so many ways we can die, It didn't happen yet. So we could be grateful for that. And at least we have today, perhaps, or half a day to work with ourselves. Hopefully more, but we never know, do we? The other thing I want to mention, which is Holiness the Dalai Lama mentioned strongly in the simple but powerful words he spoke in Bodhgaya last week, that we have to see ourselves as human beings on this planet who need to live together in peace and have a sense of oneness, a sense of unity, a sense of kindness. That's the only way for us to move forward and not harm and destroy ourselves. So here, for example, in this session, we have people from different parts of India. We have people from Australia and no doubt other places. I would imagine, yeah, other places, different races, different, genetic streams, all here to investigate ourselves on this topic we've chosen. And when we look, I think, at what's happening in our own minds, in our own lives, between people we know, and then between nations and so forth, we cannot help but, those of us who have studied a little bit, for example, Shantideva, a great 8th century Indian bodhisattva, author, Acharya, Pandit, Mahasiddha, he says, he says how strange it is, how sad it is that all of us want happiness, and yet so many of us are simply creating the causes for suffering, as though happiness were actually our enemy. Creating causes for unhappiness, for pain, again and again and again, due to the power of habit, ignorant habit, which is a simple way of speaking about cyclic existence. It's just ignorance, ignorant habits playing again and again out of misunderstanding ourselves and the world, spawning fear, insecurity, cowardice, doubt, anger, attachment, and so forth, jealousy, pride, miserliness, and the inability to open our hearts to others. So, yeah, this is so sad to look at, Shantideva says. It's like a person who needs desperately a certain kind of medicine, and they insist on taking poison, they insist on taking poison and behaving in toxic ways that harm themselves and others. So sad. So at least we can begin to recognize those patterns in ourselves and in others, and where we can, skillfully be of benefit to others. Not as sort of a pushy missionary style, but to actually reach out in a good way, in a kind and skillful way, however is necessary, to be of benefit to our fellow human beings who are so desperately seeking happiness. And as we mentioned at the beginning, without whom we cannot survive. We really cannot survive without them. We may think we can, but even if from today you don't eat or drink or wear or live in anything other than what you have produced yourself, I mean, how did you get to this place right now? How did you get to where you are today? It's due to the kindness of others, and what we have learned from other people and their example. And even the yogi, the hermit high up in the mountains, perhaps not eating or drinking much at all, still they depend on others because in order to generate powerful realizations, we need to develop love and compassion. And we can't do that if there are no other people. It doesn't make sense. So all the time we are depending on the existence of other people, animals, beings. Hmm. Hmm. So I think we're going to investigate together this topic, and which will involve some talking, some reflecting, and meditating, some discussion over the next few days, and may that be of great benefit to oneself and others. May it contribute to, if we are looking at this in a classical way, in the way that it is taught, which I think is useful, we would say it can help us in this life, it can help us in future lives. If we have a powerful motivation, understanding, and being weary of business as usual, the suffering nature of business as usual, then we could also motivate that what we investigate helps us to understand and be free completely of this so-called samsara, with its miseries, with its birth, sickness, old age, death, and all the rest of it. Be free of the clinging to that. Yeah, the craving for that. And even beyond that, we could also create the aspiration to be of tremendous benefit to others, seeing others as so precious, so dear, just like, as it is said, a mother for her only child who is suffering, you know. So much love, so much wish to free that being, that child, from their suffering, from their pain, you know. So having that sort of attitude towards everybody, whether they are helping us or harming us, is irrelevant, but that kind of consciousness. So developing that, that is also possible for a human being to develop that kind of mind. And that is what leads, it is said, to complete awakening of a Buddha. So one could even aspire towards that kind of hmm, objective, we might say. Hmm. Also recognizing that where we start where we are. Yeah, we can't start anywhere else but where we are. So whatever we need to do for ourselves, to make ourselves ready for such a journey, we're willing to do that. Hmm. So I've already spoken a lot. We might need to digest some of this, so we can sit quietly for a little while, 3-4 minutes. If you've had enough words, then just be aware of the breath coming and going, a very gentle, spacious way, relaxing with the out breath. But if you wish, if you feel like reflecting, you can, of course, reflect on some of what has been said. See if it resonates with your own experience at all. So let's sit quietly for 5 minutes. Okay. So, yeah, it's one is used to Zoom, of course, from the COVID days. It's somewhat impersonal, although it works. And from my own experience, I know it allows one to do all sorts of things behind the rectangle. For example, going to the toilet, making tea or coffee, whatever. It would be nice to be able, at least for a few minutes, if you can bear it, to show your faces, because, you know, even in the movies, when someone's going to visit someone in jail, you know, they go and even though there are bars, you actually see the other person. Yeah, you remember in the movies, you can see the person. If you're allowed a few minutes even to talk to this person, they're behind bars. So, but you can see their face very easily through the bars. Yeah, sometimes they even allow you to hold hands or something and pass messages or knives or whatever. But you know, you can see their face. So it would be nice to see some of these faces. I won't mention the names of people who are still hidden. Some of you I know, of course, so I kind of know what you look like. But it's nice when one is engaging in human communication. Is this human? I think it's human communication. It's good to see the faces. Yeah, thank you so much, those who have agreed to show their face. Yeah, there's nothing to be ashamed of, by the way, showing one's faces, you know, or even a cardboard cutout, you know, of your face, or you know, or, you know, even something of you when you were 20, 30 years younger, if you don't want to show the wrinkles, you know. But don't worry, I'm not looking that closely. My eyesight isn't that good. But if you want to share, that would be so nice. Wonderful. So thank you, all of you who are showing your delightful faces. So, yeah, thank you, Rinzin Dorjela, Anushri, who's we know very well from Rishi Valley. And Rinzin Dorjela, where are you from? You are probably muted. Have I muted?
From Sikkim.
Sikkim, wonderful, wonderful.
Sikkim.
Great,
Right.
great. Isn't that
Thank
great? Yeah, one aspires to go to Sikkim one day. After all, one has heard about it and its connections with the great Guru Rinpoche and so many others. The bottom half of the screen is still hiding themselves. How strange. The top 3 lines have shown themselves. The bottom 3 lines are hidden. So there must be something there. Even Nandita is not showing her face. Anyway, thank you very much, those who have. If for some reason you do have to go somewhere else or do something, by all means, just clock off or just show your name if you have to deal with something. Yeah, so our topic, but before the topic, it's supposed to be New Year or something in the Gregorian calendar, I believe. Today's the 7th day of the new year. But as we know, if it's just business as usual, nothing changing from last year, then I don't know what the new year is really heralding, except just, you know, planets moving and the calendar moving. That's all it is. Mine may be not moving. Yeah, okay. If your Wi-Fi connections are very poor, then of course I understand. No problem, Nandita ji. Yeah. But thank you for being there and awake. Wonderful. So we're talking about awakening a wise and loving heart in difficult situations. Goodness me, it's hard enough in good situations, no? If there's good situations, and what do we mean by a good situation and a bad situation? This is also something we need to reflect on. Everything the Buddha said, check. You know, and that's actually very disconcerting because sometimes we just want to be spoon-fed, at least I do, and told the way things are, the way it should be, what to do. But the Buddha didn't seem to be saying that. He seemed to be saying that you need to check what I'm saying and make sure that it's correct through, you know, the same technique a goldsmith uses by burning, rubbing, cutting gold, alleged gold, to make sure that it is the real thing. We can easily be duped. We can easily be duped, or we can easily deceive ourselves, thinking that we are actually doing the work when we're not doing the work. So we need to check everything. We need to really check everything. Uh, Wise, loving, goodness me, these are wonderful words, but I wonder what they mean. Do we know what they mean? Wise. We speak about wise old people. I'm not sure, wise old person, maybe just more habits, more patterns of behavior that haven't served very well. But a wise person could be someone whom you feel that you could trust, who would give you good advice, who is not biased, right? Who wants the best for you, and who's especially speaking from experience, right? That's a wise person. Forget the loving part for now, but a wise person is somebody who you feel, or one goes to them because they have some kind of experience which has changed them, and not just a passing experience, but something that's changed them into a being who can be like a sheltering tree for others, right? Takes a while for a tree to attain that size, I suppose. When it's very small, as you know, those of you who've planted trees, it can't shelter anything. The tree itself needs to be sheltered from goats and other predators. You have to put a protective railing around it, at least in many places you do. And you have to make sure the soil is okay, and pretty much you have to look after it for a little while. And one has to prepare the soil beforehand very well. There are many ways of doing this, but anyway, the small plant has to be looked after. Maybe, from my experience in Bihar, in Bodhgaya, it takes a good 10, 15 years for a tree to become a sheltering tree, which can shelter beings, can shelter others, or provide some fruit. Although, of course, nowadays, of course, in a fast civilization, so-called, we do have mango trees that can give mangoes, well, I don't know, 3, 4 years, maybe 5 years. But somehow in the old days, it took a while before a mango tree could give mangoes and give shade and so forth. So how long does it take for us to become a wise, shade-giving person? This is an interesting question. It could take some of us 15, 20 years. I've met some very, very wise 15-year-olds, certainly 20, 25, 30-year-olds, 35, 40. But, how long does it take us to be wise? And we're talking about that, and we're talking about loving. Um, and we can remember going to the arms of a parent or grandparent or friend, and that can seem very loving, yeah, okay. But what we're talking about here is not just that. It's not just that. We're talking about a sort of love that embraces people that even we don't like, actually. People who we don't like, and people who have harmed us and who may still are harming us. This is what we're talking about here. But of course, we have to go step by step. We can't jump to that. But I suppose one should put one's cards on the table and admit that this is a Buddhist session, kind of Buddhist session, right, from a Buddhist center. So what we're talking about is the kind of wisdom and love that is embodied in its highest form in Lord Buddha. And any Buddha, Buddha being an awakened person, right? Not just the historical figure, 2,500 years ago. So a Buddha has completely eliminated any kind of irritation or acrimony or anger against anybody, and has a total wish to benefit everybody, wishes everyone to be happy, wishes to help everybody in whatever way he or she can, to be free of suffering and to have lasting happiness. We're talking about that kind of love that we might be able to awaken in our mind streams if we do the work involved. So although when we say loving, we have had wonderful experiences with people as youngsters and as we grow up, that is, of course, very fulfilling and nourishing and can be wonderful. But here we're talking about a love even beyond that. because we know how we can be very loving, isn't it, towards one or two people in our life, if we're lucky. But can we extend it to other people? Can we extend it to people who annoy us, or who have, we feel sure have shortchanged us, or, overcharged us, or said nasty things about us behind our backs? That's difficult, isn't it? To really love that person, to feel, wow, I really want you to be happy. I really wish for your happiness. Of course, it doesn't mean we want to hang out with those people, Most likely they wouldn't want to hang out with us. But what do we feel about those people who are not nice to us, who actually may even want to harm us? Hmm. I'm just thinking, and this is a thought experiment, and do forgive how I'm flitting from here to there, but I do want us to think about these things. And they're sort of personal. The more personal sometimes things are, the more authentically one can talk about it. I have a younger brother who lives in Israel, and those of you who are aware of the world situation know what's happening. And as he put it, he has two sons. They're both in the army, my nephews. They don't uh, they don't have to carry rifles and go into Gaza at the moment, but they are in the army. But I'm just thinking what it's like, even in the jobs my nephews have, which does involve fighting an enemy, a so-called enemy, and taking decisions which will, protect one's own side, hopefully, and eliminate others, who are not on one side, let alone what it must be like to be, let's say, a soldier with a gun, called up, a reservist, not someone who wanted to fight. They were called to fight because they're in the reserve in Israel. So you go into Gaza and you have to hunt and kill people, right? Uh, of course, there are always, I have to be careful what I say. There are always people who may have a psychopathology, so they enjoy killing, or they, have a desperate urge to kill. There might be some people like that. Of course, there are some people like that in the world, right? We've all seen the movies, but or some of us have. But your average soldier going into Gaza or going into a battlefield in the Ukraine or whatever, they don't, they want to have a peaceful, happy life deep down. But there they are in a very dangerous situation where they know they can be shot at, ambushed, killed by a sniper who's hundreds of yards away with a modern weapon that can, pick you off hundreds of yards away. You can't see the person. And there's a rustle of air and a pop, and then you're dead. So what's it like to go in there and feel you have to protect yourself, your own friends, your own buddies, and kill someone, hunt the opposition? Often there might be a hatred also that's been developed in your mind, through the fact that that side has also killed a lot of your side, committed atrocities, etc., etc. Well, I mean, what's it like to be in that situation, um, where you may back home have family members you love deeply, deeply. Um, Very hard. It was hard to let go of them and go into, go into battle, so forth. So what I'm saying is, we all have a very kind and loving heart, but situations are such that we have to also access other parts of ourselves, which are more aggressive, which are more hurtful. And for many people, it will be a kind of an impossible scenario. It will lead to tremendous mental instability and damage. And even if people come out of the war without even a scratch on them, the mental scathing, the scarring, the trauma would be such that it could last their whole life, you know. Certainly that was the case with my brother's father-in-law, who survived the death camps of the Second World War. Tremendous burden of trauma, which is also passed on to the next generation, at least. So what is the saving factor here, which is why we can talk about a wise and loving heart, is that even those soldiers on both sides, let alone the men, women, and children in Gaza or anywhere else in the world where there is conflict of any kind, we say that they all have this potential for waking up completely to their wise and loving heart, put it that way. We're not talking about something theoretical here, that, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a wise and loving heart, But of course, it's not possible. Yash, could I have another rectangular cushion to put under the... I want people to see Maitreya's head. Maitreya is... They can't see. Might need another one. Let's see. Thank you. Okay, maybe. Okay, that's a bit better. Thank you. Yeah. So wise and loving heart. Yeah, it's good you see Maitreya's head. He's the future Buddha of loving kindness. Of course, all Buddhas have loving kindness, but the next one is said to be called Maitreya, which is very, very nice to remind us. And so that's our main statue here at Tushita, Delhi. Yeah. And it needs a bit of a, gold plating and, or at least gold paint and cleaning. Hopefully that can happen as a result of this making the head visible. Okay, so we're talking about wise and loving heart. I can't imagine what it's like for a really sensitive, kind father, mother. I don't know if there's many female soldiers going into Gaza right now, but anyway, they're mostly men, so we'll use the he. So the man going in there, he has a wife and kids, and mother, father may be still alive, brothers, sisters, etc. There he is with his gun, and he is there to defend his people and kill those who are threatening them. Yeah, hunt them and kill them if necessary in very dangerous situations, and also well aware that there are civilians, seeing mothers, children, occasionally men who are there, who can also get hurt and who are getting hurt and killed, especially in the bombing. So how does that person feel, I wonder? A sensitive person who is not pumped full of hatred towards the other. I wonder what they feel like. But they're there, they have to obey orders. Well, they're supposed to, obey orders. So the fact that they have a dilemma at all is a good sign, isn't it? That there is something within them that doesn't want to go out and kill another human being. It's not something they enjoy doing. Perhaps the only relief would come from killing is because you feel that's the only way to save yourself and your comrades. So then killing is a relief, but actually, no. One of my first contacts with the Dharma was, early contacts was up where my teacher, late teacher Lama Zopa Rinpoche was born, about 12,000, 13,000 feet up in the Solukhumbu area of Nepal. And when I was there on a retreat, there was an Israeli boy there, a young man there, and he was doing a lot of prostrations. So in the intervals, basically lunchtime or whatever, when he and I were enjoying Rinpoche's mother, who's still alive then, enjoying her preparations, which are mainly potatoes and variations on potato. Very delicious, actually. So I asked him a few questions about, what he was up to and so forth. He'd just come out of the army, not long before. So I asked him what he'd been, what he was doing. And he said he was a sniper. And we all know what a sniper is, So you very carefully, you can easily pick out your target and kill them, You have that kind of rifle, sniper's rifle. So he'd kill people in the Lebanese conflict, when there was the conflict in Lebanon, the horrible civil war they had there, which destroyed that country pretty much. Still a pretty destroyed country. Beirut, which was called the Paris of the East, is no longer the Paris of the East, that's for sure. So anyway, he had gone on missions there, and he told me how he recalled coming back in the helicopters, in the army helicopter from the wherever the front line was in Lebanon, coming back to base in Israel, and how he felt numb, totally numb. And then later he met the teachings, and he was up in Laudo, this place where Rinpoche was born, doing prostrations. He was doing prostrations, purification practice, very powerfully doing it, because yeah, he would have seen the results of his actions, through the sniper's periscope or whatever it is. So anyway, but being a human being with a human heart, he knew he felt the need. He, having met the teachings and studied a bit, I guess, he felt the need to purify that. Not our nature to harm each other, actually. It's not our nature to do that, and that's wonderful. That's wonderful that it's the case, isn't it? May not be so clear in certain killers or murderers. It doesn't manifest so easily, but I would imagine that deep down there is that sense of numbness and fact that which comes from going against one's basic nature, which is basic goodness, according to Lord Buddha. We all have basic goodness, basic sanity, not basic badness, which may be what we infer when we look at the way certain traditions talk. We may think people are inherently bad, but according to Buddhism, we're not, are we? So the Buddha nature, the clear light nature, the very pure, pristine ground of our being is untainted and can be actualized. And there's a sense we all have that it's there, perhaps, which makes us, by and large, shy away from really harming others. Or when we harm others, we realize very often that we did it out of whatever, ignorance, out of habit, bad habit, and so forth. Anyway, this just came up because, of the title, Wise and Loving. What is wise and loving, Are we capable of it? Of course we are. Because our current experience hints at it. And we all wish to be happy and don't want to suffer. That's another very good sign that if we were wise enough, if we were not so caught up in bad habits, we would engage in actions that, made sure we had more happiness, more contentment, more peace in our minds and in the world. But due to ignorance and bad habits, we are not creating the conditions we long for. We long for, those of us who may have studied a bit of psychology and how the mind works, especially people whose lives have been quite tormented, we see how we often push away that which we most need, and that is a problem. Yeah. So by the way, anyone who wants more insight into the situation in the Middle East, for example, a book which is, of course, slightly out of date now, but I think, totally up to date in terms of the basic psychology of the situation and why it is so tortured as it is a book I've mentioned before, I think, online, which is called simply Arab and Jew, Wounded Spirits in a Promised Land, which is, I think, a wonderful title, because that's what all of us are. Promised land being the promised land of our basic goodness, nirvana, you could say, Buddhahood. But we're wounded spirits, and that is the promised land, but we're not yet in the promised land. We're in a wilderness. We're in a very difficult situation. We're in samsara, yeah. We haven't yet woken up to our basic nature, our basic goodness. So we're wounded spirits, all of us, in a promised land. But this is a book, specific Arab and Jew, by, yes, the author, you Google it, you'll get the author. It's not Thomas Friedman, it's another guy. Thomas Shipler, I believe. Thomas Shipler, and it won the Pulitzer Prize. It's a wonderful book, heartfelt book, not just an intellectual book with lots of details, but very heartfelt analysis of how people can harm each other so much, and groups of people. And this is important to know, how it can happen, right? And one of the editions I had has a beautiful picture on the front of an Arab and Israeli, an Arab and an Israeli Jew, enjoying a cup of tea together, chatting together, very happily and friendly. They're friends, because they're human beings with the wish to be happy and so forth. So, difficult situation or not, we will be able to see how definitely we can, through reasoning and through access to basic human goodness, we can develop this kind of heart in whatever situation. There's often, you'll see even in the news, situations where there are people fighting each other, but then there'll always be, you have examples of people from both sides who are friends, who are not being totally, driven by hatred at all. They are still friends. They're not taken in by the propaganda and all of the media methods to stir up emotions and so forth. They are still friends. They have that basic human connection. There are fortunately always examples of that, aren't there? I feel I've already spoken too much, but I will, before we have a little bit of a conversation, perhaps, and even a short reflection, I want to engage in this investigation using a different, variety of literature. We'll start with the Buddha's words in a wonderful volume we've used so many times before, in the Buddha's words, an edition, Anthology of Discourses from the Pali Canon, Bhikkhu Bodhi, wonderful, wonderful book with so many excerpts from the sutras and so on and so forth. Of course, none of this is easy to really get to the root of what we want to talk about and to really be able to generate this kind of mind that is, and sustain it, is not going to be easy, for the reason that, the Buddha mentioned at the beginning, when he said, and I'll quote, this was when he was deciding whether he should teach or not. And it's worth mentioning again and again, because even the Buddha thought in the beginning that what's the point of teaching people? This is quite deep, what I've realized. It's not easy for people to understand. And it would be a shame. It would be, really painful for me if I taught and people didn't understand at all. So what did he say? According to the Pali texts translated into English, he said, I considered, and this is from the Arya Pariyasena, Arya Pariyasana Sutta, from the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length sutras of the Pali Canon. This Dhamma that I've attained is profound, hard to see, hard to understand, peaceful and sublime, unattainable by mere reasoning, subtle to be experienced by the wise. Okay? But this population, meaning the people at that time, 600 BC or whatever, this population delights in attachment, takes delight in attachment, rejoices in attachment. It's hard for such a population to see the truth, namely specific conditionality, dependent origination. And it's hard to see this truth, namely the stilling of all the elaborations, the relinquishing of all of our acquisitions, the destruction of craving. It is hard to see dispassion, cessation, nibbana, which is the Pali for nirvana. If I were to teach the Dhamma, others would not understand me, and that would be wearying and troublesome for me. Therefore, there came to me spontaneously these stanzas, never heard before. Enough with teaching the Dhamma that even I found hard to reach, for it will never be perceived by those who live in lust and hate. Those died in lust, wrapped in darkness, will never discern this abstruse Dhamma, which goes against the worldly stream, subtle, deep, difficult to see. And he concluded there, considering thus, my mind inclined to inaction rather than to teaching the Dhamma. So there seemed to be a point when the Buddha really decided he's not going to teach, and we wouldn't be sitting here at Tushita, we'd be doing something else. We'd be taking delight only in attachment, in rejoicing in it, and in property, and all the rest of our wonderful distractions. Yeah. So that's one thing I wanted to quote from the suttas. And the other is, and this is background, but it's very important. I mean, this I recited to show that really if we want to engage in this topic seriously and properly, thoroughly, we have to realize it's not something simple. There's some work involved, Even the Buddha didn't want to teach it. It would be wearying and troubling for him that people didn't understand. Here's another quote, which is very interesting. Where the Buddha is talking about something before his enlightenment, okay, when he was still a bodhisattva. And this is also from the Pali canon, from the Pali teachings. Before my enlightenment, he's talking to the monks. It doesn't say where, but most likely it could have been Rajgir, where he gave so many teachings in the bamboo grove, or it could have been in Travasti, where he spent 25 rainy season retreats. But of course, it could have been in many places. But anyway, oh, sorry, I'm talking nonsense. Yeah, he would be there. He would be in one of those places. Before my enlightenment, O monks, while I was still a bodhisattva, it occurred to me, what is the gratification in the world? What is the danger in the world? What is the escape from the world? Then it occurred to me, whatever pleasure and joy there is in the world, this is the gratification in the world. That the world is impermanent, bound up with suffering, and subject to change, this is the danger in the world. The removal and abandoning of desire and lust for the world, this is the escape from the world. So long, monks, as I didn't directly know, as they really are, the gratification in the world is gratification, its danger as danger, and the escape from the world as escape, for so long I did not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world with its devas, Mara, Brahma, in this population with its ascetics and Brahmins, its devas and humans. But when I directly knew all this, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world with its devas, Maras, and Brahma, in this population with its ascetics and Brahmins, its devas and humans. Unshakable. Then the knowledge and vision arose in me. Unshakable is the liberation of my mind. This is my last birth. There is now no renewed existence. Of course, from the Mahayana point of view, there is renewed existence, but there's no renewed unenlightened existence. This, he's saying, is his last birth as a bodhisattva, as an ordinary being, although bodhisattva is not really ordinary, but ordinary in the sense of not yet enlightened. So this is his last birth as an unenlightened person. So, in short, if monks, there were no gratification in the world, beings would not become enamored with the world. But because there is gratification in the world, beings become enamored with it. They, they become very attached to it. If there were no danger in the world, beings would not become disenchanted with the world. But because there is danger in the world, beings become disenchanted with it. If there were no escape from the world, beings could not escape from it. But as there is an escape from the world, beings can escape from it. Anyway, this is just background. This is some background from the early teachings, and it's very, very well worth reading this because it talks a lot about the 8 worldly feelings. There's a very useful section in this book on how ordinary beings, who are referred to here as uninstructed worldlings, which is a translation of the Pali, uninstructed worldlings, meaning beings who have not yet engaged in any study, any self-reflection, just behaving like automatons, powered by their impulses, their sanskars. For uninstructed worldly beings, worldlings, we experience painful feelings on different levels, not just on a physical level, but we also have a mental, level of feeling. So it's not enough to have a painful feeling. We also have a bodily one. We have a bodily one and a mental feeling. We have a kind of compounded feeling of suffering, according to the Buddha. This is also very well worth looking at some point from the Samyutta Nikaya, I think. So anyway, there's that. And also, as background, we need to see how there is really, just as we study in our own tradition, the Tibetan tradition, when we look at the early teachings, the early meditations on suffering, there is just, in a sense, nothing to be seen that is not suffering, nothing that is not some level of suffering. And this is, of course, very difficult. People don't like these kind of teachings because it goes against our feeling that, there must be some real happiness, some true happiness in samsara, but there isn't, according to Lord Buddha. And he gives the reasonings and he asks us to look at it. So that is also worth looking at in the context of this, developing a wise and loving heart in difficult situations. Because it's very important to understand what everybody is experiencing in samsara, And of course, he also says, monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. A first point is not seen of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance, fettered by craving. For such a long time, monks, you've experienced suffering, anguish, disaster, and swelled the cemeteries. Life after life, we swelled the cemeteries, whether the buried or whether ashes in the Ganga, whatever. It's enough to become disenchanted with all these formations, enough to become dispassionate towards them, enough to be liberated from them. Yeah, it's worth reading these kind of things. Very powerful. We will refer to this more in future sessions in the next 8-9 days. It's very good to look at the basic teachings again and again. And not like some of us, like me, sometimes think that Mahayana is so superior that it's only worthwhile reading Mahayana sutras because they're so, far out and wonderful. And, so, we need to look at the basic situation of the First Noble Truth and understand what the Buddha means by that and how it applies to our own life. And not feel that it couldn't apply to my own life. I'm okay. Some discussion? Because otherwise I can go on talking forever and that's so boring. It's no discoverable beginning or end to all this. So Yeah. You can unmute yourselves as far as I know and talk. Ask something, or we could give first preference to people here at Tushita Center. There are 8, 9 people here at Tushita, which is nice to see. They have braved the cold and the pollution to come here, which is very good of them. Okay, who's that? Somebody said something or attempted. Anybody? Huh. Person in the back row here at Tushita. Namaskar. बढ़िया. Thank you. हाँ, ये तो सही बात है बहुत. हाँ, आते रहेंगे. हाँ, जन्म लेते रहेंगे, आते रहेंगे. परेशान होते रहेंगे, दूसरों को परेशान करते रहेंगे. क्या करें? Yes. जी. हाँ, you don't have to stand up, but yeah.
Last year, when I was doing this about Ukraine and Russia, these wars are continuing. It's more like a revenge, like you said.
Yes.
There's no end to sight.
Right.
Now,
वो तो रेडी छोड़ी.
then at that time, these were not the issues. It was a different world with different kind of issues. Today, no one seems to be adhering to what Buddha's enlightened teachings are to bring peace. So it's so sad to see so many people die and so many innocent people dying because of no.
Well, yeah, thanks. Okay. And your question is that this is a different world and that the issues are different.
A solution based on the traditions of Buddha, which was so many years back, because no one seems to be adhering to it.
Well, there's several aspects to your question. First of all, I wouldn't agree that the situation in terms of the human mind is much different now than it was in the time of the Buddha. As he says, the population then is not going to understand my teaching. Why? Because their minds are full of attachment, lust, anger. They're not interested in the Dharma. They're not interested in facing their own mind, let's say, working with their own mind, with their own delusions, their own klesh. You mentioned revenge. Yeah, that's a very powerful human emotion, isn't it? Which creates a lot of suffering in this world on the family level and on national level, international level. So yes, this has been there in the past. It's there now. The only difference is we have more weapons of destruction and things may be much more complicated now internationally because we are connected internationally, diplomatically, trade-wise. This is far different from the Buddha's time, obviously. But the raw human emotions are not different. I would disagree with you if you say that there's any difference there. They're the same. Of course, I would say they've got worse in a sense. They're more powerful now. And because we are more powerful technologically, it's very dangerous because we can destroy this planet, as you know, many times over, with the thousands of lethal weapons we have at our disposal. You ask, what is the answer? Well, the answer has only ever been to work with our own mind, make friends with ourselves, which means to love ourselves enough that we can love others as well, to make peace with our own mind so that we can make peace with other people's minds. Because while we're running around like idiots, like angry idiots, you might say, well, there's no way we can help other people. Aggressive idiots, aggressive, ignorant, uninstructed worldlings, as the teachings say. If we are aggressive, uninstructed worldlings running around on this planet, we're only going to create confusion for ourselves and for other people. That's clear. And the pity is, or the issue is, that we have the ability to engage in unbelievable damage as a result. And the only answer is to develop a wise and loving heart, which means in the Buddhist context, you could say, understand the insubstantiality of the apparently concrete solid self, and to develop a heart that embraces the world with great compassion, wishing each and every being to be free of suffering and to enjoy Buddhahood and willing to take responsibility to make it happen, to do something to make that happen, and not just to be an armchair, kind person, but actually do something, whatever one can, realizing that we cannot do it all right now, but taking some steps to help the world, to help suffering people, maybe even starting with our own family members, who are suffering, and not putting them in another category. And, they also deserve love. Our dreadfully irritating family members or whatever, they are deserving of love and compassion. So that's where we start. You asked how to deal with it. That's where we start. And then if you say, how can we help, make others see this? We can't. We can't make other people see this. Shantideva said, put shoes on your own feet. Don't try to cover the whole world with leather. You won't find enough leather to cover the whole world, but put shoes on your own feet and then start walking, and then things might start happening. Help other people put shoes on their own feet, perhaps. So like that, taking small steps, we can help others, we can help the world. But we have to realize we cannot do so when we still have the the destructive emotions in our mind stream. Until we have uncovered our Buddha nature, our intrinsic goodness, our basic goodness, we are not sure of being able to help others perfectly. So that's the task, to see how we are connected with the world, and that if we help ourselves and awaken our own goodness, we will be helping to awaken more and more goodness in the world. Practically speaking also, because you can see how we'll be then creating less confusion for others, using less harsh language or deceptive language or garbage language with others. So that's giving them a break from at least one person's nonsense, So by helping ourselves, we are helping the world. Maybe a lot of people we are helping. If we know 100 people, let's say, then 100 people are benefited if we stop, irritating them, stop using bad language with them, start loving them, then 100 people are benefited, you see. So there's a ripple effect, and those people also start helping other people. There was research done in the 1960s. Some of us are not old enough to remember the 60s, but there was a time called the 1960s in which the Beatles were there, this pop group, and so they became very enamored with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who taught them transcendental meditation in Dehradun and other places, Rishikesh. And so then, when some of these people who were affected by the Beatles and that generation started meditating in places like the United States, they did some research in the area where there were quite a few meditation groups, I think in Los Angeles or somewhere like that, San Francisco, not far from where Maharishi Mahesh Yogi had a center. And they found the crime rates went down significantly in the areas where people were meditating. And they were not doing loving kindness meditation even, or some kind of deep meditation on emptiness, or they were doing transcendental meditation, which I admittedly don't have much experience of, but it doesn't require generating love and compassion as such, or insight into emptiness, as we say in Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism. But just there doing that practice, groups of people, they say it brought down the crime rate. That's what the statistics showed. So if that's the case, imagine all of us here at Tushita engaging in a practice of calming the mind, meditating on loving kindness, attempting to meditate on the illusory nature of a concrete, solid self, how that might help the people around us, no? So there is hope. And we can only, what I feel, we can create little not enlightened, but little oases in the desert of modern life, which has become increasingly a desert. So we can create little oases of sanity and kindness in the way we behave, in the way we build our houses, eat our food. Many ways we can create an environment which is conducive to contented, happy, more peaceful living in harmony That's the key word. In harmony with each other, in harmony with the planet, and recognizing there are only so many resources left in the planet. We cannot squander it. We cannot exploit it as though, there's no end to it. So that is possible. Yeah, so it's a good question, good comment. And the only way is to work on our own minds. And I think the Buddha's way is just, from what I've seen, is supreme, is really amazing to develop this insight into what we are, who we are, really, and then to develop this mind of extraordinary, all-embracing love and compassion, again, genuine, based on, again, reality, not based on a fantasy, based on how things are, and without any kind of grasping at the self or any ambitious, self-seeking mind, and to do it very skillfully. This seems to be the great gift of Lord Buddha and the great beings who have transmitted the teachings since his time. Very extraordinary teachings, I think. That's the only way. And we know that government policy, the United Nations, all these wonderful things, they cannot stop even a war, All these countries in the world that want the war to stop, there to be a ceasefire, they have no power to effect a ceasefire in Israel. People are resigning in the White House in protest, beginning to, but that hasn't stopped the American, America from basically supporting what's happening in the Middle East. And it's also not going to stop the Iranians or whoever else are supporting things from the other side. Because, if you do this, the other side will do this, If you start doing this, then the other side might relax a bit. But we like having a fist, don't we? In the modern world, we think that's very, very smart, And of course, it makes a lot of money for a lot of people, being tough and aggressive and violent. It's making a lot of money for many people. And for people who like making violent movies that people like me watch, unfortunately. Yeah, but I'm not going to confess much more than that today. Yeah, let's have some discussion. Yeah, Yash. Oh, I think Ajirji, you also had something earlier.
No, I was really thinking the wars will definitely go. Somebody has written that last 2 centuries we had 5,000 wars.
5,000 wars in 2 centuries, okay.
Yeah, small, big, whatever.
Right.
Now, the people who are really going to participate,
Yeah.
could there be some change in their mind when they go for the war? Like in the Buddhist perspective, there are 4 levels of the generosity.
There are what? 4
kinds of generosity.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
4 kinds of generosity.
Material things.
Mm.
Second is to give the affection.
Mm.
And third is the protection.
Mm.
And the fourth is the dharma.
Right, right.
Now, if some soldier is really going in the battlefield, could he really have that mindset that he is going to protect the country? And he is, in one way, generous enough to put his life there. Okay, because otherwise the whole country would be in panic,
Yes.
suffering.
Yes, yes.
So he gives that assurance, I'm really there.
Mm.
That would be one way of really
Mm.
saying. Another one is, well, I think if he is going in the war, he has to kill.
Mm.
If he is not there, the other people will come and they will kill so many people.
Mm.
So he is killing just one person and preventing him for killing many people.
Well,
So that's one way of saying that. In that also, if he's having that state of mind, there's a kind of love. Because he don't want that. He should carry the burden, karmic weight of killing so many people.
well, that is the Bodhisattva example.
Yeah, so I think that's the kind of perspective I was really putting when you were really saying.
Mm.
Because otherwise, the people who really go to war, in the later stage of the life, they always feel that they have not done right.
Mm.
As you said, this Israeli soldier who was doing this,
Yeah.
I met quite a few people who were the monks in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, who were in the war in Vietnam.
Ah.
Now they have all gone back.
Mm.
They have become the monks, and they feel that they need to help the Vietnamese people. Okay, so I think if the perspective of going to the war is changed at the mental level, maybe I think that
Well,
regret
yeah.
or that guilt may be
I would,
lesser.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I'd agree with you, Ajit, that an individual can engage in many ways of thinking. Yeah, and can aspire that by me going in here and killing, it will stop. For example, they could say, this is going to be, my motivation is to go, I have to kill, I don't want to kill, but I'm killing because I want it to stop wars. I want to get rid of this, stop the situation as soon as possible. I'm doing it with love for my people, and I regret having to kill somebody who might also be the father of children and the husband of someone. I regret it. I don't want really to do it, but I'm going to do it because, yeah, then it's difficult actually to say because. Why? Because my killing them, they're going to suffer.
yeah.
And they're going to hold a grudge unless they are very enlightened people, and they're going to harm you in the future. So actually, yeah, you can mitigate the karmic burden by not going in with hatred and enjoying killing. That would be the worst. But at least killing with regret and then purifying later, like the boy up in the Himalayas, that would be best. But I was thinking also while you were saying, which I shouldn't be doing, I should just be listening to you, but I was thinking too, which is a bad habit, isn't it? I was thinking that if the leaders don't change, it doesn't matter what the soldiers are thinking, they want, for selfish reasons, as we know in the Israeli case, to continue the war because they know when the war ends, that leader might even go to jail. So he wants to be a war hero, he's fighting a losing battle on that score. But yeah, if the leaders don't change, then it doesn't matter. Even if every soldier is really very well inclined, they're still having to go in and kill people. But if the leader were a bodhisattva who knew the consequences of actions and knew that this was the best way to stop the suffering for a long time, then fantastic. But I don't think the people involved are bodhisattvas, and what they're doing is going to create it's created untold misery, more than, of course, what we see in at least our Indian newspapers. And even Guardian and others, they haven't allowed most journalists into all the places. Israeli journalists are allowed in, and most of them are just, speaking from the Israeli side. So we don't know the untold misery and horror that is happening for everyone there, including the Israeli soldiers, and many are dying. I'll come to you in a minute. And also, we don't know, we can imagine what the consequences are going to be. No proper plan for Gaza, How are you going to have a plan for a destroyed place which looks like some apocalyptic wasteland in a movie, Who's going to live there? How are you going to resettle them there? Where else can they go? Nowhere, No one wants them. What are you going to do? What's going to happen after this? That's one thing. Even if they're all resettled in wonderful, fantastic Gurgaon style, marvelous mansions, what about the vengeance, the feeling of vengeance? You killed all my children, my family. They're not going to let it's not going to die with a few people, the hatred, the vengeance. So this idiocy of thinking you can destroy Hamas, a movement, it's not people, it's a state of mind. Vengeance, Hamas, aggression on both sides, it's a state of mind. You can't destroy it by killing the people. Unless you kill everybody in the world, then you can manage it. If you can kill everyone in the world, maybe that's one way. But then they will reincarnate somewhere and create untold misery on some other plane of being or planet. So, it's no end to it. But these people just don't understand karma. They don't understand, I was going to say Buddhism, not Buddhism, but just reality. So it doesn't matter what each kind, wise individual soldier might be thinking or motivating. The end result is horrible. But yeah, they have mitigated their own karmic burden by not doing it out of hatred and by realizing how this is just such a terrible nonsense. And any Israeli soldier, most anyway, when they see a suffering woman and child injured, what are they going to feel? What are they going to feel? Unless, of course, their own daughter or wife has been raped and killed by Hamas, then they might want to just, kill that person without any compunction. But otherwise, they're not going to enjoy seeing women and children suffering, I don't think. A normal soldier, even, you know. Of course, circumstances can make us into devils, but yeah. Yes.
Very strongly. So I think this topic is very close to my heart. So I think just one addition when you said about the leaders, about
Leaders, yeah.
but I think
Yash has a very strong connection with interfaith dialogue. He's our a resident volunteer here, and he's very close to the rabbi in Delhi. Yeah, some background. Yeah.
Yes. So I just think that, especially speaking about Israel, it's the
Mm.
people who are voluntarily, going into the army. So it's not the.
It's not voluntary. It's
It is. I did follow and I did cover it. So people are voluntarily.
some are. Yeah. Some are. Many are.
At the first time, that's a different, way of putting it.
Uh,
And as far as soldiers are concerned, I was just covering the Bodhgaya.
as far as what is concerned?
As far as soldiers are concerned,
Huh.
I was covering the entire war which Bodhgaya did from the ground zero on Buddha story. The soldiers themselves are very much into killing the people, so they are not being ashamed, in being, killing the Palestinian children. So I think they have been convinced, and people are voluntarily signing up for, joining the army. There is a network of people.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they enjoy killing children.
They are, in some of the interviews, they were saying that they are actually convinced. Of course, the entire episode of 40 children being killed turned it into a ideological battle of, that you have to kind of just, eliminate Hamas, like after the incident of 40 children, the Israeli children that were being killed.
Mhm.
So I think.
Yeah, I would think what you're saying could be true, but given the nature of human beings, I think that would traumatize them, and they would have many symptoms later in life, which are the conscience pricking them.
The question is.
But I agree, hatred is so powerful, ideology is so powerful. Ideology, where you're convinced you're right, not just hatred, ideology, then yeah, you have to kill them. It's right, we have to get rid of this vermin, like Hitler wanted to get rid of Jews, and Stalin wanted to get rid of whoever. Yeah, it's like you don't see them as human beings. That's the thing. You have to not see them as human. Yeah. So then you can easily kill. I agree. But later, I think it does something to your humanity, which manifests later, I would imagine, in this life at some point. But yeah, I could agree with you that they might, as Jeffrey Hopkins says in his book, Truthful Heart, for the Americans to have been able to go in and bomb Iraq, as he put it in his own words, you have to see Saddam Hussein as a mad dog. You can do that by not doing the meditation on how others and oneself are the same in wanting happiness. Remember, we did that meditation again and again, maybe before you came. How just I have feelings, I want to be happy, same with everybody else on the planet. But once you stop feeling that way for Saddam Hussein, he's not in that category. He's not like me and my friends who have feelings, who want to be happy, who don't want to suffer. Once you put him in another category of a mad dog, then you can easily kill a mad dog, right? Because he's just a mad dog. Just happens to look like a human. But if you see him as ideologically with ignorance as a mad dog, then of course you can kill a whole bunch of mad dogs and not have any compunction, any kind of prick of conscience at that point. Although Buddhist psychology might say that even then you might have a prick, but I don't know. Later, I'm sure something would manifest. Because everybody potentially has a wise and loving heart, you see, everybody, because that's how we are made, you could say. But it's deeply hidden, yes, deeply, deeply hidden. Yeah, very deeply hidden.
My question was that, let's say, when we were discussing when Buddha was not, like teaching initially.
Yeah.
So the thought that came to my mind is like, there may be many reasons of withholding the information. Let's say, for example, when I think about myself, I have so much self-censorship that I cannot speak for the Palestinian because I know that people are going to, whether it's a government or some people are going to raise issues. So I cannot speak, even if I feel so much for Palestinian children, I cannot speak for them. So how do we come out of that self-censorship, kind of a thing? That may be one reason. Also, when I go to the ground and, meet youth, I don't want to give them the information because I have a loving kindness towards them, that if I'm going to share everything with them, they may get triggered, because of like what is happening. So I withhold the information, and that makes me, more kind of like, should I tell them or should I not? The dilemma which I think maybe Buddha had initially, that they may understand, they may not understand. So how to, in the current context, how to.
It's always a dilemma, isn't it? What to share, what not to share. I mean, it's your situation and the Buddha is slightly different, but it's that issue of when is it wise to open one's mouth and talk to someone and say something in a certain context? When is it better not to say anything? That's a universal dilemma we have every day. When should I speak to this person? There was something I had to tell someone, so I decided not to tell them yesterday, to tell them today. And yeah, today was better timing. Yesterday wasn't good timing for various reasons. So we may have the right thing to say, but if it's not the right time, if it's not in the right way, also one has to say things basically in a kind way, sometimes in a firm way, but if it's just angry, it immediately brings a certain response in some people, which is very aggressive or aggressive passive, or they just zone out. They can't handle your aggression. So it's very difficult to know. And of course, in some cases, saying what you really want to say will get you arrested. So then you have to say, am I willing to get arrested? And if you are, well and good for your beliefs. If you're willing to get arrested or have stones thrown at you or whatever, then that's up to you as a human being. You can't ask me whether to do it or not. That's up to you and your conscience. If you think your life is more beneficial out of jail or in jail or, half in, half out, court case, some big court case could make you famous and you get in the papers, that could be very good also. But then, of course, the papers would give biased news, so they wouldn't give the, correct information, possibly. So it's very difficult to be a wise person and share everything. And it's very difficult, even for bodhisattvas, I'm sure, to know sometimes exactly what to say, not to say, how to say it, who to say it to, which is why most of them are just carrying on quietly and relatively quietly with helping us all change our minds. We can't do so much in this complicated, polarized world where there's so much aggression and hatred and people are willing to jump on you if you slightly disagree with them, right? So what's the point of interacting too much with such a world? Better to save your energy and work on yourself and really become a powerful, kind person, and then one can do more. Right now, we are like, people who can't really swim properly, and we're trying to jump into, a stormy ocean. It's just not going to work. We really need to develop our mental abilities, is what I feel. Because I make so many mistakes just on a personal level, then I think, how am I going to help other people? How am I going to help society? Come on, First get your act together, get your skillful means together, because often one feels a lot of love and compassion, but one doesn't know how to properly express it or what to do with it. It's like having a lot of money and not knowing what to go and buy or whether to buy anything or not. Sometimes it's good not to spend the money. Just work on it, build up more money so you can help people more in the future. No need to spend recklessly before we know what to spend it on. So that's with energy. We have energy. We all have human energy, right? But it's limited, especially if we're not yet bodhisattvas. So we have limited energy. So we have to use it wisely. So perhaps you just choose one or two people who will listen to you, isn't it? Choose one or two people who will listen to you. It's very hard. Without clairvoyance and wisdom, it's so hard because we don't know how people will react. Really, even if we don't even know how our best friend will react sometimes at all to a certain piece of information or something we want to communicate. So that's why Shine, developing clairvoyance, could be a very useful first step. Going into the forest or mountain and taking teachings on calm abiding, develop some clairvoyance, and then you really know one would have much better means of helping others, knowing what to say, when to say it, what to teach that person, what not to teach them, wow, it would be such an amazing thing to have that kind of understanding, right? But we don't right now, most of us, right? I don't. So it's very hard to know how to help people sometimes. But if we are calm and sometimes are willing to listen and watch carefully, then I think we have a better idea. Often we're in too much of a hurry, and our mind is too scrambled and whizzing around. We don't notice. Like I'm trying to be aware of people, if people are very sleepy or not, and they're not too sleepy, I think. Arunaji is good. You're there, good. Arunaji is our eldest member here. 88? How old are you, Arunaji? Sorry to ask a lady her age, but it's very inspiring. Huh? 88. 88? 86. Okay, 86. Just 2-3 years younger than His Holiness, Dalai Lama. A very wonderful, sprightly lady, Arunaji. But yeah, I won't embarrass her by talking about her in public. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, Rebecca Ji. We are too eager to change the world, not so eager to change ourselves. Rebecca Ji is quoting Mingyur Rinpoche.
Explain them what it is, like walk in, which side we stand. It's all subjective. So, it probably starts with us, like how you said. I will do this project, I will do this NGO work, I will do so eager to change the world. I found it
Yeah.
not to work on ourselves.
Yeah, we don't. It's so easy, isn't it? Because our eyes are so powerful, our senses are so powerful. So we see the mistakes outside because our eyes are looking outside. If they were to look inside, we might see all the damage the tea and biscuits are doing to one's insides. One would at least change one's diet. But because the eyes are looking outside, we see all the mistakes in somebody's hairstyle or makeup or the mess on their dress or the fact that their handkerchief is dirty or that they pick their nose or, have certain ideas. We're seeing all these things outside, but we're not bothering to stop and look inside. You're right. The senses are drawing us outwards, aren't they? Which is why in the teachings somewhere speak about being like a tortoise that withdraws the senses inwards. And of course, yoga talks about that, the Hindu yogic tradition, withdrawing the limbs, the senses inwards, because we're too outward oriented and so easy to see mistakes. You go into someone's house and then, of course, some people don't, but a lot of people, you go into someone's house, first thing you see are the mistakes, right? You come into Tushita, first thing you see is the dampness on the wall. Let me show you people. The first thing you see is the dampness on the wall rather than the Maitreya statue, or all the beautiful people here. You see the mistakes, but then just makes us see ugliness everywhere and react. Yeah. Because I was able to see the beauty in a softy ice cream yesterday with a very energetic and enthusiastic person. I had a softy ice cream, even in cold, overcast weather, which I'd never do usually, but I was looking at the wonderful 25 rupee softy ice cream in Regal Building in Connaught Place, which I recommend to anybody. Best value anything in virtually in New Delhi, I would say. So what flavor did you have? You had blueberry. Yeah, Sagar had blueberry and I had chocolate vanilla. And it was very nice. But yeah, I suffered at night, by the way, from that. So it just proves suffering of change. Proves suffering of change. But at that time, I thought I was engaging in pure perception. That it was probably just greed. Yeah, since I just had a meal at Quality Restaurant, which was quite enough. but I think it was the youthful enthusiasm, being in Connaught Place and all of that, and the fact that it was just around the corner. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we see the fault outside, we see attractive things outside, and then we make a mess. We create problems. So I got up twice or thrice last night as a result of eating too much sweets yesterday. Gajar halwa at the restaurant, and there's also kasata ice cream, so we all had a bite of that. And what was the third thing? Kulfi was there, so we had a bite of kulfi.
I also want it now.
So, you know, the senses are drawing us out. Why should we look inside when there's so many fascinating things outside? You get the idea, people online. It's very difficult to live in this world. We should only have 2 or 3 senses, no? It would be less complicated. Maybe not. According to the higher teachings, we can use everything. Haven't given onliners a chance, and this poor lady who's gone now had her hand up ages ago. I'm so sorry. She's gone now. Top left of the screen was somebody who had her hand up. Oh dear. Oh, okay. Tanya then? Tanya? Yeah.
Hi, I
Hello?
actually have a very complicated question
Oh
about
dear.
attachment.
Oh yeah.
So, I know we say that, we should not be attached to things, to people. And I know if you're obviously a bodhisattva, it kind of you've done it over years of teaching. I'm still find it really hard, in the sense that if someone has wronged us, someone very close to us has wronged us. I mean, obviously, you can let go of the people, but the feeling of, this injustice, feeling that how could they wrong us? How could, without an apology, how could they not feel sorry about it? Or how could they not feel the suffering of it? Is something that these are feelings that I'm usually tend to be attached to. And I don't think of myself as a bad person, but generally, this is an attachment that never kind of is hard to let go of. So how does someone like me, who's not done so much of studying on this or who's not read so much on this, can actually let go of the attachment?
So you're saying you're not a bodhisattva yet?
Yeah. No, I'm not a bodhisattva. I haven't done Buddhism
Join the
teachings or
club.
learning.
Join the club. Join the
Yeah.
club. So yeah, these things are very painful. And I have a bit of a divided mind and body right now because my body is telling me to go to the toilet, but I'm thinking to answer your question. So anyway, I'll probably run off in a minute, but what I want to say before I go, and other people can also take part in this, we have a lot of very wise people here. The feeling is there, and I agree one has to be with the feeling, yeah, because you feel wronged, okay? But you also mentioned that the thoughts are going on in your head. What would happen, I wonder, if one let go of the thoughts, okay, the thinking process, that they did this, they said this, they wronged me, I did this for them, they did that to me, blah, 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 which does go round and round in one's head, right? At least in my head it has in the past. So what happens if we let go of the thinking and just pay attention to the feeling, which is going to be somewhere in the body, right? If we let go of the thinking and just relate to what we are feeling in our body, having taken a few deep breaths, I wonder what that would do. Perhaps one could experiment with that. And then when that feeling has been worked with, I mean, I'm not saying how it would go, but perhaps it changes. There are some authors who say that it will change. The feeling will not be so powerful. The feeling may even go away. It may dissolve. So then what happens, you see? But we insist on keeping things boiling by thinking about them. This is what I've seen in my own life. You don't let go of a hurt, of a problem, of an anxiety, because we keep on thinking about it. How about stopping thinking about it and making it worse that way and just staying with the sensation in the body? That's a big challenge for me because I'm more of a thinking person. So, but how about staying with the body? How about staying with the feeling? What do you think? Perhaps someone else can take over while I
Yeah.
obey the feeling. Yeah. Give the computer to Ajirji, who is our elder statesman. It's okay. You don't have to say anything. You can get Naveenji to say something. You want to say, Naveen? Putting the not cat among the pigeons, but the computer among the populace. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what Kabir Ji has already said, there's a thought which is called the cognitive side, and then there is the, no, it's okay. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think what Kabir Ji has said, I just wanted to take it further. So any situation, one is at the cognitive level, which means the thinking process, and the second is the affective, which is the feeling level. So if the feeling is the problem, by taking care of the cognitive side, it is not going to help much. So can one really step back and feel that feeling and be with the feeling? If there is the anger, if one is feeling that anger, can one be in that feeling of fear? If there's a fear, can one be in that feeling of fear? At least it starts calming down, and the mind in its clear nature starts emerging. So if there's a feeling problem, and if one is thinking about that, it's almost like saying that if I have a headache and the doctor gives me the medicine for, let's say, stomach problems, it's not really going to solve that. That is one way of really putting it. And the second is, I think we also have to see that there's a correlation between the cognition and the feeling also. Sometimes we can change the perspective at the cognition level, and the feeling also will change.
Okay, that helps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because the object is the same, only the perception is the different. A is the daughter to the mother, sister to the brother, sister-in-law to the sister-in-law. So if you really see that, I think the feelings would be very different. But the object is the same.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome. I think anyone who'd like to add, I think here. Yeah, you can come here, they can listen to you.
I'll sit here so that they can see. I don't want to sit, I've got artificial.
Okay.
We are imperfect. I'm a living example of, let's say, partially artificial intelligence with artificial knee and artificial spine. I don't want another artificial implant in me. So, this, what Ajit Ji said is wonderful, and what Kabir said is wonderful. But then, with technology going up, I mean, this is a very open perspective I have. What I'm looking at is, we discuss so many solutions. Ultimately, cognition has limitations. Artificial intelligence, if managed well, could be something which would be a brilliant solution, provided if we can control it. I don't know, Ajit Ji and Kabir Ji are much more well versed in this kind of things, but that is something, Ajit Ji, that I would like you to enlighten further. Thank you.
I think the technology can make our life comfortable, but it can't really give us enlightenment. I think I would really put that statement. All of you can really reflect on that. Where? Okay. Kabir Ji is back now. I'll hand over to him.
Which is hiding. I'm coming here.
Huh?
Nikki. Maybe we invite Nikki.
Okay, Nikki.
Thank you for this opportunity. Uh, Kabir Ji, way back in 2017, in one of your teachings, you shared the meaning of love, and it simplified my emotions a lot in life. You share that to love doesn't mean that you have to even have tea with the person. You simply have to wish good for the person. I've been trying to practice that ever since that session, and it has made my life easy. But last year, I'm currently in Manipur, and Manipur is sort of like Gaza. It has been, and it has been difficult. Um, in the sense, my question comes from the sense that I'm living constantly in the middle of violence and hatred non-stop. And it is difficult not to choose sides because you're forced to choose side with guns on your head. You're ostracized from the society if you don't speak on behalf or against the other party. So my questions is, how does one protect oneself from continuous hatred? Uh, I mean, it is difficult. I mean, in a so-called normal world where we have to worry about pollution and jobs not being there and traffic jam, it was easier to manage hatred than what in the condition that I am now. And there are thousands like me who don't want to choose fight, who don't want to choose sides, who don't want to engage in violence, but we don't have a say. I completely resonate with the gentleman who spoke earlier, talking about self-sensitive, and we have been living in the situation of self-sensitive for the last now 9 months. And there's a time when sometimes I feel that when you're censoring oneself so much that you lose the voice of your own self. You can't listen to your own conscience. So how does one deal with it?
I'm sure you have a sense of how to deal with it yourself, right?
Yeah.
What would you say if you were to ask your own, your own wisdom mind, your own intelligence? How would you deal with it? Say you're in my place, supposed to be the teacher. How would you answer your own question? I'm sure you can have some hint. Although you seem to be in a very difficult situation, more difficult than probably anyone else here in this room, perhaps. We're not such a conflict situation, I think, any of us here. Certainly not on the social, political level. So how would you deal with it? What do you think you have to do to, I would say, to give a hint, maybe, protect yourself, but also not give up on others? You have to protect yourself first, don't you, from this violent environment. And I'm presuming you can't just run away or don't want to just go away, right? And come to Delhi or go somewhere else. Is that correct? Your situation won't allow you to escape.
Yes, more because I have been working for the displaced people. There are more than 60,000 displaced people living in more than 300 relief camps, and I've visited around 50 relief camps and been working with them, providing whatever they could. I'm just being the facilitator, and it's been because of the kindness of people living in different parts of the country that we have been able to, be of some help to those in need.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to ask Naveen Ji to introduce himself and respond to your question.
Sorry, I didn't get your name, but I really, Nikki. Hi, Nikki. I think it's a really precious question, and I just obviously have no answer for it. But I think I want to just share uh, similar thoughts and discussions some of us have through, like, I know personally of many folks who would think of themselves as activists in their past lives, in the sense, yeah, for decades on. And I've encountered many of them in the last 3-4 years coming to certain kind of Buddhism through a trajectory of complete, feeling tired, tired fighting injustice, tired fighting for suffering, how to alleviate suffering. So I think there is a lot of people who come through this kind of a difficult moment, and there seems to be some confusion in how to approach suffering, institutionalized violence, aggression, right? So it's one thing to talk about specific personal sufferings, personal violence, personal aggression. But when we also think about socially institutionalized ways in which subjugation happens, oppression happens, patriarchy, all sorts of racist state mechanisms of violence, right? And there's some two broad patterns I do encounter listening to others. One is to say that, okay, when you enter Buddha Dharma in a particular way, understand karma uh, in a particular way and say that, okay, this is all part of karma, and also in some ways respond to this situation through their understanding of someone like Shantideva by saying that, be like a law. Okay, you understand this is happening, do not respond. So that seems to be one way in which some folks respond. The others respond by saying that no, suffering is so central to the way we understand uh, aggression. Violence is something so central to the way society is structuring themselves, and it's almost a crime to keep quiet, be a log. That then in that sort of ways in which people start trying to respond, then intention becomes so important. Even when you have to respond to aggression, to injustice, it becomes so difficult to take the path where you take uh, this suffering seriously, violence seriously, and not keep quiet. That becomes so difficult at that point. Then I think that's where I understand your concern coming from, and I really have no answer for it. But what seems to be so important then, in this second kind of mode of trying to understand, would be then to say that to check our minds even as we act becomes so important. That to keep quiet is not an option. But how do we act then becomes so central. I mean, what is the intention with which we act? Are we able to respond to injustice with a mind which is not full of anger, and yet to be able to respond to specific moments of injustice, institutional forms of injustice? That seems to be the challenge which I understand you speaking to. And there are so many resources which we have been lucky to have. Someone like Thich Nhat Hanh, he came through this specific moment where of 60s and 70s, and to keep quiet is not an option. To keep quiet is to say then that the oppressor is right. Your silence is in some ways increasing the hands of the oppressor, and that itself goes against your understanding of what a bodhisattva should be. How do we aspire to be that? And yet, I had this really very marginal, nothing compared to what you are going through. When the recent spate of violence started, there's this Buddhist group which I was part of in WhatsApp. Sort of, we have all gone to the same retreat at some point, and then I was just sharing a reading which I found on this particular aspect where when the Buddhist monks comes out in a particular way in Burma, in Myanmar, right? And so I just put that out with some similar experience from Israel again. And there was a couple of Israelis in that small group, and the way they responded was very strong and aggressive in the sense that, that the very possibility of having a Buddhist practice which takes this seriously is so difficult. Yeah, and my own response was to just keep quiet. I felt like, if I would have continued talking in that group, I felt like my ego was just taking over at that moment. So I kept quiet, and all that I said was, let's hope that we all figure out a way in which we can move beyond our own identities at that moment. But that was it's a very easy way of, I had the luxury of keeping quiet, because in some ways it's not affecting me directly. And I've been last 6, 7 weeks, I've been thinking, what other ways could I have responded to? What are the skillful ways in which could I have responded where my ego doesn't come into picture, and yet I could communicate in a way that the other person could also figure out my dilemmas of not keeping quiet. So all this, I think I'm just rambling on, but all this to say that I hear you, and it's so much more difficult for you to be there in that concrete situation, and it's really having to sit with it and see what are the skillful ways in which we can respond. I mean, it's such a difficult task. But thank you for asking that question.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
I think the situation there, I can really feel very well, and have dealt the conflict of this nature. It's a very, I would say, razor edge walking. It really needs a lot of skillfulness so that one is not really misunderstood. I think Naveen had mentioned about Thich Nhat Hanh. I really would like to say he has been one of my teachers. He was uh, talking of the peace in Vietnam when the Americans took over. And he was misunderstood by both sides. The Vietnamese government thought that he was working for the Americans. The American thought that he was working for the government. So finally, when he went to US to give a lecture in one of the universities, he was expelled. I think almost maybe more than 40 years he has been out of his country. But he kept on working for the end of the war, whether it was in US, whether it was in France, everywhere. Okay, so I think one way would be really knowing the situation there in a very peaceful way. Can one work for the harmony? I don't know, it needs a lot of skill. Second is, I think it really needs a lot of patience, because the reactions would be very different from different people. I don't know really what to say. I think, but I would say that one has to keep on working for the normalization of the situation by bringing at least surface level of harmony, and then maybe the finally a kind of the full harmony. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, your question has brought up a lot of interest, and thank you. I think if one were to take Shanti Deva's advice, he would say you have to work on strengthening your own mind while also realizing that you're connected with others. So never to forget them, but not to think, as we normally do, that to help others we have to be frantically going out the door and helping them, with a capital H. Often that's not helping so much, it seems, in certain circumstances, which may be the one now, or you might just get shot or wounded or arrested, which wouldn't help much. So maybe just it's a situation where more and more and more we develop our own sadness and compassion of the highest order. And then if the Buddha is correct, if the tradition is correct, if the experience of the great teachers is correct, this will help you life to life. Countless lives in the future, this attitude, this courage, this way of thinking will help you, this way of being will help you. And if it's helping you, then it will help others. So often we can't do much now, but that's just the situation. But what we can generate in our hearts can help long term, given the rather traditional way of looking at things, which is that this is just one short life. Future lives are endless. So just to focus on this life is understandable, but not quite in consonance with reality. So better to think long term. How can you help yourself and others long term? when there's a situation now which is almost, yeah, it's like no one has the answer. Everyone is saying, I don't know how to answer your question, because it's actually unanswerable on an outer level. It has to be on an inner level. Seems to me. I may be wrong. Think about it. Read Shantideva, see what you think, based on what he has said. Do you have Shantideva's book with you? Have you heard of it?
No, not currently, but I can search it online.
So Shantideva, A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. You'll find it online. You can download it. And, read what he has to say, especially in the patience chapter. The chapter on patience. And, well, the whole book is something extraordinary. There is a lot of information and guidance there on how to deal with such situations. But it's always coming back to oneself. One has to help oneself before one can really be of any benefit, much benefit to others. Which doesn't mean one can't speak out when the situation is appropriate. One must speak out. Otherwise, yeah, just insanity takes over, doesn't it? What's that famous quote of somebody? Edmund Burke, I think, from Scotland or England. He said that for the triumph of evil, it is only necessary that good people do nothing. He said good men, that good men do nothing. That's all we require for the triumph of evil. So yeah, we good people, so-called, have to do something, but it depends. In some situations, you can't do much at all, except stay indoors and work on your own mind. And nothing better than that from the Buddha's perspective, actually. Nothing better than that. For long term. As well as immediate benefit, because you realize you become realistic. You realize that anything you say or do will be misinterpreted, like Ajit was saying. One side will think you're on the other side, the other side will think you're on the other side. So better just to keep a low profile and work on your own mind. But if a starving person or a wounded person comes to your doorstep, then of course, great to let them in and tend to their wounds. Talk to them. But anyway, I think you get the idea that none of us has the answer. So you have to use your own wisdom, and which we all have. And Shantideva embodies it in a remarkable way in his work. Yeah, it might be close to time to wrap up. It's 1:17. There are more sessions we can continue with. So let's dedicate now. I'll dedicate with Maitreya in the background. It's the only thing that will save us long term is loving and wisdom. So that's what we have to work with. Well, you folks can't see me, that's all right. So thank you everybody for your patience. I hope that the session has been useful. I think it will have been, because it's come from people's experience, not just, excuse me, you may not be hearing me very well. Plug in the microphone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, probably can. So everybody, thank you. We'll dedicate for restoration of balance and as much peace as possible in all of the areas of conflict in the world. And the main area of conflict in the world, as we know, is our own mind, our divided mind, our confused, angry, attached mind full of delusions. So may that be healed. May we understand our minds better and realize that the real healing happens within our own minds. May all of the our teachers who give us great guidance and inspiration have long and healthy lives. May the teachings, which are the source of great, what shall I say, insight, which guide us, which we can use as the best kind of medicine to heal all of the sickness, mental sickness of the world. May those teachings last a very long time in the world. May we never be separated from such teachings, and most importantly, be able to understand and integrate them into our lives and not treat them as just phrases on paper. So may that we can, make it all very living Dharma. And if we can be of great benefit to others, may we be so in all kinds of ways. The Bodhisattva dedication also involves that anybody who sees, hears, touches, helps us, harms us, praises us, criticizes us, whatever connection they have with us, may it be of great benefit for them, help them to awaken. This way, may our very presence in the world be beneficial for others. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama have long and healthy life. May all his holy wishes be fulfilled. Likewise for all the other great lamas who are benefiting others through skillful teachings based on their own experience of wisdom and compassion. May we all have long and healthy lives and never be separated from the teachings. And as His Holiness said, may we always have authentic literature and always be able to use our own critical intelligence to investigate the Dharma. If we have teachers, well and good. If we don't, may we not chase after gurus like a dog chasing after meat, is His Holiness's expression based on a Tibetan proverb. But may we use our intelligence and authentic literature until such time as we may find a teacher, which could be very, very, very important for us. Okay, so yeah, thank you all very much indeed for your patience, and hope to see some of you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. We'll continue with this, and hopefully online as well. We've had a few issues at Tushita with electricity and so forth, but hopefully it will be okay tomorrow. So take care, and yeah, hope there are many difficult situations. I know my friend in Australia, Jan, she probably has to face some weather issues and other issues, and we in Delhi are facing cold and pollution as usual, but that's nothing different for us. So, we're used to it, kind of. But all of you, wherever you are, please have a happy day, rest of the day. And yeah, take care and lots of love from all of us here at Tushita. Thank you.
Thank you, Kabir Ji.
Thank you.